Distributed controls applied. One of the first things in an engineer's world is looking for a diagram, either building it yourself from past experience and knowledge or training or exposure, to actually knowing where the drawings are and having seen them, pulling them out of some basement bins and blueprints before there were computers. So this need for an understanding, a knowledge before you walk in the door is key. Knowing what questions to ask, where to find answers. These are referential knowledge. This is knowing where the links are that you should go trust when you ask a question. Like, what is a NEMA 3 explosion-proof cabinet requirements? And does that fit the needs of the facility, or should they be increased or decreased? Because you save money when you don't have to worry about NEMA 3 standards for explosion hazards. So, block diagram. That's the fundamentals where the bulk of this starts. Someone sits down with a napkin and draws some squares on a napkin. The squares have inputs, the squares have outputs. This goes back to using physics equations, using equations in the sciences. Almost every equation has a denominator. The PV equals T equation that you hear people talk about and refer to death heat and all types of other things out there. First off, that's not the full equation. And second off, that equation is bounded by a rule in a closed system. So what I have to do as an engineer is be able to close these systems. I don't worry if there are water fountains for the employees in the area. I might later, if I'm responsible for the employees and they approach me with an issue about it, but that's not in the scope of what I'm looking at. So all my little boxes have specific functions, specific inputs and outputs, and from those boxes 1,000,000 lines of software is written to go into 300 different manufacturers' applications and systems, all tied together and integrated into something that makes the plastic that you're holding on to, or makes the cans in your cupboards. The only worry about the inputs on the can factory is raw materials in and finished goods out from an engineering perspective. Now, sales has to worry about who's going to buy those cans. Supply chains have to worry about getting the metals in the door for that little box on a piece of paper. So in doing that, you close this system into little diagrams, and you create Venn diagrams that show the relationship between one and the other and whether they're hard. You back out and you analyze, are these systems synchronous or asynchronous? Does one thing have to happen before another? Or can I make the lids for the can while I'm making the cans for the can? So, being able to close a system, understanding what that means, it's a very important key. The instrument I use, a Geiger counter, ionizing radiation detector, has rules, but you can know those rules to define how you're going to use the instrument. So I might take a sample, a 5-minute sample, 10 foot apart across a whole field. 5-minute samples, 10 foot apart across a 20-acre field, in order to try to make a source radiation identification versus a distributed radiation source identification. But without understanding what those words mean in the context, in their usage, well, you haven't explained how you closed the system. In a closed system, you have an excluded middle, things you just ignored, that you didn't think of value enough to worry about. But if the employee has to walk half an hour to a restroom for a 5-minute break, something's not going to flow well. So, it's easy, simple stuff, pieces out.